My name is Carlton and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you settings I use to shoot on the Osmo Action 5 Pro when I'm capturing events like weddings and sweet 16s and bar mitzvahs, any type of professional event that you can pay for. Now, the Osmo Action and the Osmo Pocket, these cameras, they were not made for event shooting. They were made for like vlogging and to use on your bike and all that. But I decided to use them in a more unconventional way because I realized that the the image quality is very good when it's lit. So you need proper lighting, obviously, to use these cameras indoors. If you're outdoors, you don't need any lighting. There's already natural lighting. But if you're using these indoors for events, 'cause this channel is all about shooting events, how to do it, and all the tips and tricks, right? So if I'm using these cameras to shoot events, you need to make sure that it's proper lighting so you can get the best quality, and you need to know the settings to use to get the best out of this camera. So that's what I'm going to be showing you, how to change the settings in this camera so you can get the best out of it when shooting events. Let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is change it to pro mode. So once the camera comes, it would be like this. So you click over here, you click pro, and you get the pro mode. And then you can leave it on auto white balance, or you could change it to manual white balance. But I find that auto white balance works pretty well. If you're in an environment where the lighting is not changing, change it to manual. And if the lighting is 56, change it to 56 or whatever color is the room. And so that you won't get any shifts. But from my experience, the auto white balance works very well, and I don't really see any shifts. So I would keep it on auto. For exposure, this one, it all depends on what you're doing. For instance, if my lighting is not going to change, if let's say I'm in a wedding venue and I have this set up static and I have all my lighting set, there's no reason to have this on auto, because when you have it set on auto, you don't want the exposure changing during the shot, because then it's going to look unprofessional. Imagine you're looking at this video I'm shooting right now, and on this video I'm shooting on the Osmo Action 5, and I'm capturing the screen of a second Osmo Action 5 with my Sony A7 IV, just to capture the screen so I can show you what's happening. It's best if everything is set to use manual settings. That's really the pro way of doing it, so that you won't get any exposure shifts. For instance, let's say you have it set on auto and somebody passes in front of the camera will think that the scene gets more darker, and then the exposure will go up to compensate. And then once that person moves, then the exposure is going to go back down, and that looks kind of unprofessional if you're shooting professional work. Now remember, this guide is only for people who are shooting professional work. If you're just using this for vlogging and for family photos, just put it on auto. It's going to work great. Just leave it on auto and you're fine. You don't need to put anything in manual. But if you're using this for professional settings, I would suggest you use some of the manual settings. So I would suggest don't go past 3200 ISO. The camera image looks great between 100 and 3200 from my experience. Now everybody have a different threshold for what they want it to be. So I might think 3200 look great. Somebody else might think 3200 doesn't look great. And somebody else might also think 6400 look good, and I don't think 6400 looks good. So everybody have their own opinion of what looks good and what doesn't look good. So what you need to do is, when you get the camera, shoot in different ISOs and you determine which one you like. And once you get to the point where you don't like how the image looks, that's how you know the limits of how you want to shoot. For me, 3200 is the most that I would go on this camera, Osmo Action 5 Pro. Let's talk about the shutter speed. if you're shooting on 24 frames, then you want to set your shutter speed at double, which is 1/50th. As you can see, it's at 1/50th here. And if you're shooting at 60 frames, then you want to go to 120. See? 120. All right, always shoot at double your frame rate and you'll get the best result, the best natural motion blur and all that. And so let me put mine back to 50 because I'm shooting at 24 frames, although this camera is not shooting right now because I'm demonstrating it, but I'm just telling you. So then I can click confirm. Now if you want to do auto, we have auto, right? And once you have auto, you want to set it between 100 and 3200. And the EV, it all depends. You know, a lot of people say on YouTube that set it to -3, right? But -3 is not going to work for every lighting situation. So just take that with a grain of salt. Maybe if you're outside, -3 might be good. But I'm telling you, -3 is not going to work for every lighting situation, even outside. But it's a good place to start. You go to -3, see what the image looks like, and then adjust it. Like for instance, if I'm indoors, right? I'm shooting a wedding, and I'm up at my 3200 ISO on it, and that's the max. I'm taking it too, but the image still looks dark. -3 is not going to work. So obviously, I'm going to take it all the way up. You could take it all the way up to +3 EV to get the proper exposure. And let me tell you something, +3 EV, it looks great. The EV doesn't increase, from my experience, the EV does not increase or decrease the amount of grain on the video. The ISO will increase or decrease the grain that you see. But the exposure compensation here, EV, this only brightens or darkens the image. So if the scene is dark, too dark, and you already maxed out your ISO, then just increase the exposure right there. And exposure compensation, and that's it. And that's going to work out great for you, all right? So there's no one setting that's going to work in every lighting situation. That's just impossible. You're going to have to adjust it depending on the room that you're in, the amount of lighting that you have, and all that. And this is when you're using it in auto, okay? So if, let's say, for instance, I'm shooting dancing. I more than likely want it in auto because sometimes, depending on how the camera is turned, one side might be darker than the other. And it's good. I would allow the camera to compensate. Like when I go on a darker side, it will raise the EV to get the proper exposure. And so far that has worked good for me. So you got to determine if the lighting stays exactly the same, then you can use manual. If the lighting is going to change because you're moving or the subject is moving, then you can have it on auto. Auto works great also, but as I said, auto is not good for every situation. And up here, you can tell it what's the lowest shutter speed that you want, right? And the shutter speed allows how much light to come into the sensor. So as you can see here, it says from 124 to 18000, right? That's the range. But if I'm shooting at 50 frames, I don't want it. I don't remember. I told you there's a rule, a 180 rule, where if you're shooting at 24 frames, you want your shutter to be double of that. So it should be 1/50th of a second. So anytime I'm shooting moving subjects, in the sense of if I have the camera in my hands and I'm moving, I always keep it at least 1/1000 of a second, always. Because this camera, it needs the shutter speed to be at least 1/100 in order for the stabilization to work. This camera, it needs to be at least 1/1000 of a second in order for the stabilization to work properly. If you put it under that and you try to move with the camera, it's not going to look good at all. It's not going to be professional. As I said, if you're using this for stuff that's not professional, you're not getting paid for it, then you can do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. But if you're getting paid to capture high quality video, you need to learn how to use the camera. And that's why I'm telling you right now, don't go under 1/100, no matter what frame rate you're shooting. So if you're shooting 24 frames, and I just told you that 1/150th is good, 1/150th is only good if the camera is static. So if this camera is on a tripod, then you're okay. You can shoot it at 1/150th, everything's going to be great. Because then the camera is not using any stabilization because it's static. But once you hold this in your hand and you're moving around with it, the camera is using stabilization internally. So it needs the shutter speed to be at least 1/100. Okay? So no matter if you're shooting 24 frames, make sure you set it to at least 1/100 to 1/8000 shutter speed, so the camera has enough wiggle room in order to have good stabilization. All right. So let's go into what color mode to shoot. Now, I would suggest you shoot in D-Log, and I'll tell you why. So you can shoot in HLG. Nobody suggests that. You could also shoot in normal 10-bit, and you can shoot in normal 8-bit, which is not suggested even by the camera. So don't ever shoot in normal 8-bit. Normal 10-bit is what most people who are not shooting in D-Log, this is the mode they would shoot in. This is the color mode they would shoot in. So let me tell you what's wrong with this camera. This is one of the biggest cons of this camera. When you're shooting in normal 10-bit, the camera has kind of an HDR effect. It looks kind of cartoonish. It's not suitable for professional usage, in my opinion. So what you should do is shoot in D-Log 10-bit. And in D-Log 10-bit, you could also show color recovery. So color recovery, it allows the camera to show you what it's going to look like once you add the LUT. Let me tell you the workflow. First, I already told you, don't shoot in normal color mode. If you do that, you're going to regret it. Because if you're trying to match this camera with Sony cameras or Canon cameras or any other DSLR or mirrorless camera, it's not going to match. Because the normal color mode, sometimes it'll look fine and sometimes it will look HDR. What you should do is always shoot in D-Log. And don't be scared to shoot in D-Log. Let me tell you why. Because in order to, D-Log is more of a flat profile. So this means that you're going to have to add the color in your editing software. For instance, if you're using DaVinci Resolve, which is what I use, or Premiere Pro, which is something that I also use, Premiere Pro, you just have to get the LUT from DJI, and it's a very simple process. You download it from DJI website, you open up your editing software, you go where the LUT is, you copy the LUT into there, and then you just apply it to the image. It's very fast, very simple, and if you're editing on your phone, there's an option to add it from your phone. So don't be scared to use D-Log. I know sometimes, you're looking for a quick workflow, but unfortunately, DJI messed up the color in this camera when shooting in normal mode. So if you're trying to shoot professional video, you need to shoot in D-Log. And at first I was just like everyone else. I don't want to add extra things to my workflow. But once I pull up the LUT and I applied it to the image, it was so quick. I'm telling you, it took me less than a minute. Okay, it probably took me a minute to download the LUT, like go to the website, right? But once I got it onto my computer, it took me another minute to put it into DaVinci Resolve, and then another 10 seconds to add it to the image. It's very easy, very fast. So make sure you're shooting in D-Log. I just shot a wedding, and the client did not want any log footage, so I shot it in normal mode, and I kind of regretted it. I think in the future, if someone doesn't want any log, I'm just not going to use the camera, period. Because I shot a bride in the I was doing some prep shots. I was shooting the bride, and she had I gave the camera to her, and she was shooting with it. And as she turned around, I can see the color shift. And maybe I should have put it in manual mode. But a lot of times, when I give the camera to someone, I want to have it on auto because I'm not sure where they're gonna go, if the lighting is gonna change. But for a couple of seconds while she was using it, I can tell the color. I didn't like how the color was looking, and I don't think that's correctable. So another reason to just use D-Log. Although the image is never going to be, as perfect as a DSLR camera, but it's going to be acceptable. It's going to be usable to match with these cameras. That's all you want, right? Because remember, these are action cameras. They weren't meant to shoot like this. But there's a lot of things that wasn't meant to be used a certain way, right? And we as human beings, we find ways to use them, for our benefit. And that's what I do. I'm just not a conventional thinker. I always try to figure out how can I use this differently than how it was made to use. I always think just like that. I have a couple of cameras. I have the two Sony A7S Mark III, and those are full frame cameras. And I have this camera right here is the Sony A7 IV, and this is a full frame camera also. Sensor is pretty big, and these cameras are very good in low light and excellent cameras to use. So you asked the question, why am I using action cameras? Well, I'm using action cameras because these cameras could go in places where no other cameras have gone before, just like Star Trek. So these cameras are so small that they get me even more excited to shoot. I feel like when I go to a wedding right now, or event, I'm looking for all type of different ways, like where am I going to put a camera? I feel like a kid in a candy store with these cameras. When I'm shooting my Sony cameras, they're great, but because of the size of these cameras, and because I don't want them to break because they're very expensive, they're thousands of dollars. And the action camera was, I spent less than $300 for the action camera, right? So it's just different use cases. For instance, I can take the action camera. I'm shooting a wedding. I can put it up in the hoopah, like at the ceremony, put it up high. I can't do that with a DSLR. I can't do that with a mirrorless camera. They're too big. They're too heavy. I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk these cameras falling and I just don't want to risk it. I'm not going to do it. So I'm so happy that I decided to use these action cameras. I'm using the DJI Osmo Pocket and the DJI Osmo Action. And I bought the Osmo Pocket first, and I loved it. I loved it. It's just that the Osmo Pocket is not durable because it has a physical gimbal. So I was trying to find, can I use action camera for weddings? And that's why I went down that rabbit hole and did some research. And I saw some footage, and at first I saw the normal color mode, and I was like, I can't use that. That's not gonna match. And then I saw it in D-Log, and I'm like, this could work. And that's when I went ahead and I bought the Pocket and then the action camera, and I love it. I love using them. I know they're not perfect. I know they got their limitations, but listen, every camera, everyone has limitations. Even you can go buy a camera for $25,000, it's going to have some type of limitation in it. Okay? It could be codecs, it could be workflow, it could be just the size of the friggin' camera. Some cameras are just too big to use in certain situations. With these small cameras, there's no limits for these cameras. You can put them anywhere, and these cameras are also waterproof. So this action camera, I could even shoot when it's raining. So it's a huge, it's another tool in my toolbox. Now, for all my main shots, I'm gonna always be using cameras with bigger sensors, because I know a lot of clients, they want the autofocus background, which looks great. When it comes to low light, you can beat these cameras with the bigger sensors. They also have interchangeable lens, so I can use a 70 to 200 for many different type of shots, for the ceremony, for different things, for portrait shots. And then I can use an 85-1.4. I can use 50. It's just so many. The limits are only your pocket. How much money can you spend to rig out these cameras, right? So I'm never going to stop shooting with those cameras. But what I've done is I've brought in these smaller cameras to complement these bigger cameras. So in places where these big cameras cannot go, or I'm just not going to put it there because it's just risky, that's where I'm going to use the action camera and the Osmo Pocket also. So for instance, if I'm shooting a ceremony and I want to get like a crowd reaction, I don't want to have a big camera on a tripod in the middle of the ceremony facing the crowd. I want to have something more discreet, because I don't need any special image from that shot. This is kind of reaction shot of, let's say, the family looking on to the bride and groom while they get married. I don't need any special out of focus background for that. So I'm going to put the Osmo Action on a tiny tripod, a tiny stick, not even a tripod, a stick, right? A mono stick. And when I put that down right in front there, people are not even going to notice it. That's how small and inconspicuous these cameras are. I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to get a great image of the family, of them laughing, crying, smiling, clapping. And these cameras are perfect for that. Also, the bride coming down the aisle, right? When she's coming down the aisle from the back, I don't need no special camera for that shot to get the back of her dress while she passes. What do I need a special, big sensor camera for that for? I don't need that. It's just totally unnecessary. So I'll put an action camera down, point it up to get that shot. And it's just the perfect camera for certain type of shots. It's certainly not perfect for every shot, obviously. I would never shoot a wedding strictly with an action camera. That just would not work. But for different type of specialty shots, these cameras are perfect. And the image is amazing. And it shoots 4K. It shoots 4K 60. I mean, you can't go wrong. Let's come out of the color mode. And let's come all the way out. And let's go to resolution. So I would suggest, obviously, if you like to shoot in 4K, go straight to 4K. Okay? And if you're moving around and you shoot in moving subjects, then go to at least 4K 60. That's what I would suggest. If you're not moving around, let's say you have this camera, like I use this, you can put it high up in the air, and you're just using it static. It's rigged onto a pole or whatever. Then you don't need 60 frames, because with 60 frames, people are moving. It looks good. You could also slow it down for the slow motion effect. If not, just use 24, 4K 24, and 4K 24 would save you card space, because 4K 60 uses more card space than 24. So the point I'm trying to make is that, let's say you get a camera, right, and it shoots 8K or 16K or whatever. Don't immediately put it on 16K and just because it shoots like that. So the Sony a7S III that I own shoots in very high bit rates. I'm not shooting 200 megabits per second unless the client that I'm working for wants me to shoot like that. But if I'm shooting my own project, I'm not shooting 200 megabits. It's just totally unnecessary. So you need to know what you're shooting, and then you need to change your camera to match that. For instance, if you're shooting a green screen, then you need to shoot in the higher bit rates. Okay, so certain things that you're doing, you need to know, hey, I need to shoot in higher bit rates for this. If you're shooting in S-Log on the Sony cameras, you need to shoot in a higher bit rate, because you're gonna, when you're editing it, you want to be able to push it and pull it. If you're shooting the lower bit rates, it might be more difficult, right? So there's not one brush for it all. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to choose the right settings for whatever you're shooting. All right. Resolution, if you're shooting 4K, I'd shoot 60. If you have it in your hand and you're moving around, I would suggest shoot 60. And typically I would shoot at 1080p. For most of my own stuff, I shoot 1080p. I don't need 4K unless I need it, right? Like if I'm shooting something and I know I'm gonna be punching in, because with 4K it's about 4 times the size of HD, right? So if I think, okay, I'm gonna be punching in, or I want the option to punch it in when I'm editing, then I'll shoot in 4K. But if I'm shooting a scene where I know I'm not gonna be punching in at all, then why am I wasting my time shooting 4K? It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm gonna shoot HD because the file sizes are gonna be lower, the quality is gonna be just as good. You have to know what you're shooting, choose the resolution that you want. There's no wrong answer here. You can shoot at 1080p, you can shoot at 2.7K, you can shoot at 4K. Just pick whichever one that you want. And the most popular one is 4K 69 at 24 or 60. That's the most popular. There's a lot of options here. You need to know what you're shooting and pick which one is suitable for that scene. All right, so let's move on to, this is the focal length, right? So let me tell you what I would suggest. Don't leave this on off, because then you won't have any stabilization, and if you're moving with this camera, then it's not going to look good. If you have it on a tripod, then you can leave it on off, then it's fine. The problem with my issue with this camera is that the lens is pretty wide. So it's saying here, like when it's off, right, this can go from 9 millimeters all the way up to 19 millimeters. Okay, so I personally want to shoot at 19 millimeters. That's still wide, and that's how I like to shoot. Now, you can test it out and see which one you want to do, which one looks best for you. But I would suggest always have D-Warp, because the D-Warp, it makes sure that the lines are straight. So when you're standing like there's trees in the shot, or maybe a doorway, and it's curved, I don't like that curved image. I think it looks terrible. I think it looks unprofessional. Like that fisheye look, I don't like it. I think it's horrible, and I think there's no place for that in professional video. I would suggest Rocksteady Standard D-Warp. That's what I would suggest to use. Now let me show you what I use, because I want, and that is, and if you're shooting in Rocksteady Standard D-Warp, the focal length is 15 millimeters. But you could also shoot Rocksteady Plus, but that's not recommended. It's but you can test it out. There's horizon balancing. This is what I like. I like horizon balancing, or I would do horizon steady. So horizon balancing is 17 millimeters in the focal length. But I go to horizon steady, which is 19 millimeters, standard D-Warped, so that the edges of the image always straight. And the horizon steady, you can turn the camera, I think, up to close to 180 degrees, and it would still stay, the horizon would stay level. That is crazy. And the horizon balancing, you can have it at 45 degrees. Like you could turn the camera at least 45 degrees and the image is going to stay balanced. And I love that. I really love that. Because sometimes when I give this camera to someone, they turn the camera, I don't know why they turn it, but they turn the camera, they tilt it. And if I didn't have this on, the image will look like this. Like, you know, it just won't look good. So when I give it to someone and they turn it, it still comes out good, straight. The horizon is level, and I love that. So I really only like to shoot in horizon steady, standard dewarp. I love that it's 19 millimeters. Sometimes that's even too wide for me, but that's as close as I can get, and I really like that. I really like using that. So that's what I use: horizon steady, standard dewarp, and I love that. So once you get the camera set up the way you like it, maybe you might be using it, use some tips that I've shown you in this video. Swipe down, go to the first icon on the left side, and just click the add button. And that's it. And that's going to save whatever settings that you currently have on the camera. So that whenever you open back, start the camera up, you could just always go back to that. You don't have to reset everything the way you like it. And you could adjust it as you want to, because you will have to adjust it. If you're at an event and you're moving into different rooms or whatever, you will have to adjust the settings, the exposure, you know, so you can get the best image of wherever you are. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. This channel is not sponsored by anyone, so you know that everything that I say is coming from my own experience. So that's how I use the Osmo Action Pro to shoot events alongside with cameras that have much bigger sensors. I match the image up, it looks great in the edit, and so far I'm really loving it. So don't be afraid to get an action camera and use it along with your big sensor cameras, because that's what I'm doing, and I'm loving it. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you got any value out of this video, please give it a like. Please consider subscribing and support this channel, because I'm going to be releasing a lot of reviews, a lot of tips and tricks, a lot of behind the scenes at events. So just stay along for the ride, and that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.